Know what I like about you? Nothing. Now f*** off.
Things are getting bad, guys. Like really, really bad. The data confirms it, and if you don't believe this, you're only deluding yourself. In this video, I'm going to be presenting to you the 6 reasons for why dating for men will only ever get worse in the years to come. Number 1. Female quality decline. Now, in my last video, I spoke about the holy trinity of what makes a perfect 10 out of 10 woman. If you missed it, the 3 things were hot, young, and undamaged. But what's shocking about these 3 things is that in each department, they have all got significantly worse in the last few decades. There have been 0 improvements. Everything is going downhill. We'll start off with the first, hotness. If we take a look at this chart, this displays the level of extreme obesity in America over the last 30 years. It's also broken down by gender. And if we take a look at the data, for men, the level of extreme obesity has gone up from 0.3% to 2.2% in the last 30 years, a difference of 1.9 percentage points. Meanwhile, for women, there is a differential increase of 3 percentage points. That's 3 times the level of obesity in this time frame. So in the 90s, just 1 in 60 was extremely obese. In 2019, that figure has dropped to just 1 in 20. And this number isn't even including the regular overweight or obese people. The women are getting fatter, guys, much fatter. I'm going to be honest with you, I've been going to nightclubs somewhat regularly, and whenever I go, I always see the exact same thing. You always get these obese women lurking around, and they'd always have a lineup of beta orbiter normies surrounding them, and these guys would always be slim. Here's another thing. The rate of both men and women who have a tattoo has also gone up in the last 20 years. And while for men, a tattoo can often increase his attractiveness, as it can enhance his masculinity, for women on the other hand, tattoos almost always decrease her attractiveness. The women out there aren't as attractive anymore, and it's getting worse year after year. How about the second point? Young. Well, if we take a look at this chart, the average age of first marriage has gone up by nearly 10 years in the last 50 years. It was 21 years old in the 60s. In 2017, it is scraping over 30. And no guys, this isn't a result of men holding women off till later ages. It is in fact the other way around. Women are now choosing to spend their teens and 20s partying, having a good time, and then when she gets older, almost always at that magic number of 30, then she'll jump off the carousel. Then she'll start wanting to settle down, usually with a beta provider. The dating market is getting significantly worse for the men out there who want relationships and marriages. Now moving on to the last point, undamaged. And guys, this should be by far the easiest to understand, that this corner has got ridiculously worse in the last 50 years. Bringing up the chart I showed at the beginning again. The average number of women with more than 10 partners before their first marriage has gone up massively in the last 50 years. The rates of single motherhood have gone up tenfold since World War II. And guys, like all of the data I'm presenting to you, the situation is almost never as okay as it seems. For example, in this chart, the last data point was in 2010. It's been over 10 years since that time. Tinder wasn't created until 2012. Just imagine how high the up-to-date numbers will be now. Next, this chart only shows the women who have more than 10 partners. I'd like to see how the data would be split if they divided it into more groups for the higher numbers. There's women out there who are racking up counts of 50, 60, 100, 200 partners. Imagine what the data would be like if they included this in the survey. And lastly, this might be the most important variable. Women are 1.5 times more likely to lie about their body count compared with men. This data collection produced its results from a survey. Imagine how much worse the data would be if they showed the actual numbers. I've heard it all, guys. These are just some of the excuses I've heard from women when they try to explain/justify their number of partners. Oh, well that guy, he didn't make me finish, so he doesn't count. Oh, and that guy? I'm not making this up. He went in the back door, so he doesn't count either. I've genuinely heard a woman say this before. The women are getting worse, guys. Way, way worse. And there's a strong chance things are also worse than you think. Now moving on to point number 2, attractiveness inflation. When you think about this one, you realise just how ridiculous things are getting. So, a few decades ago, and for the reasons just explained, your average woman's relationship value was quite high, and this is justified by the reasons outlined in point number 1. Additionally, their perceived value was low. They didn't have access to things like online dating, which inflates women's egos, and simping wasn't anywhere near as widespread. So the point being, women used to be significantly more humble in the past. But now, in 2021, women's actual value is in freefall, but their perceived value is skyrocketing to all-time highs. The level of delusion in the current dating market is reaching unprecedented and unsustainable levels. If you want to hear more about the reasons for why this is, I go in depth in my last video. There's 8 reasons in total, so be sure to check this video out after finishing this one. A link will definitely be in the description box below. Also, before I move on to the next point, now I've got 2 reasons out of the way, now is a good time to press the like button, leave any thoughts you have in the comments below so far, as it helps the YouTube algorithm. Moving on to reason number 3, the unneededness and unwantedness of men in the current dating market. In all of human history, going back tens of thousands of years, men were highly valuable for a tribe's survival. Their main purpose was to protect, serve, and sacrifice for the benefit of the tribe. A man's main bargaining power towards the opposite sex was the ability to provide resources for both herself and her eventual offspring. However, in the last couple of decades, men have lost that bargaining power. Women are in the workplace and have an abundance of resources nowadays. And putting aside the debate for this particular change for now, if we just take a look at the impact that this change has had on the dating market, we see that the majority of men have now become all but redundant in the current dating market. Moving on to reason number 4, online dating takeover. The impact that this has had on the dating market goes without saying, and there are 2 reasons for why this is causing things to get worse. The first one's obvious. Online dating is all about looks. Online dating equals LLL, looks, looks, looks. Looks is what's separating the haves from the have-nots. And the second reason is that online dating has put all of the power in the hands of just 2 groups, the women and chads. Before online dating, almost everyone's social circle was significantly smaller. But now, online dating has given pretty much an infinite number of options for both of these 2 groups. Before, even if a guy was extremely high value, a top 1% guy, he still would have been limited massively by the size of his social circle. The infrastructure simply wasn't available for him to access all of his potential options. But now, because of online dating, it has set up the perfect conditions for chads to monopolise over the dating market. Reason number 5, global sausage fest pandemic. There's too many men in the world, guys. Way too many men. In all parts of the West, the male to female ratio is 105 to 100 for 18 to 29 year olds, and it changes slightly depending on where you go. This change has only happened recently and is only getting worse as the world continues to develop. Because for all of human history, for any tribe or civilization, there were always more men born than women. However, as men were much more likely to die in hunting or fighting other tribes, there were always more men who died earlier in life than women. And usually, come reproduction age, the ratio would have been balanced out by that point. But now, in the modern world, where we have vastly improved safety, almost no one dies before the age of 20. This is causing the ratio to become skewed. Secondly, here's another point that I've heard very few people talk about, and that is the generational imbalance of the dating market. So in the 1900s, almost everyone was married in their early 20s. Divorce rates were extremely low, so everyone would pretty much be staying with the same person for the rest of their life. But now, in the 21st century, where divorce rates are much higher, it means you are getting a constant influx of new singles in the dating market. And most of these are looking to date down a generation. So pretty much, if you're a young guy, you're not just competing with all of the guys your age, you're also now competing with a lot of guys who are 5, 10, 15 years older than you. And this causes the ratio to skew even further. In fact, this exact scenario happened in my own family. So before I was born, my father was already married to somebody else. They split up and now he's married to my mother. Now let's analyse the impact that this divorce had on the dating market. Well, for my father, his value had barely changed. Meanwhile for her, her availability took a big plunge. In fact, she already had kids at this point, so she never re-entered the dating market. Out of choice, she chose to stay single for the rest of her life. Secondly, her value had also dropped. Women lose desirability after having children. It's common sense, guys. No man wants to be there to raise another man's children. So the point I'm trying to get to is that these two detrimental factors didn't happen for my father. His SMV was mostly unchanged. And the result of this is that it pretty much created this 2 for the price of 1 scenario, where for one man he has removed both himself and 2 women from the dating market. Therefore, this skews the sex ratio even further. Finally, moving on to reason 6 for why the dating market is getting worse. The diminishment of monogamy. Listen guys, this is the hard truth about the current state of the dating market. Nowadays, most of the women out there would rather share a chad compared to having a beta to herself. I'll say that again. Most women would rather share a chad than have a beta to herself. And if you don't believe this, ask yourself, why do we now see so many women who are sleeping around, being promiscuous and refusing to enter relationships? Who do you think the guys are that they are seeing? Simultaneously, why do you think women friend zone the hundreds of guys who are offering them a relationship? The truth is, it's because of this reason. Keep rereading it until it's drilled in. And if you're still unsure, I'll explain exactly how the dating market has changed in the last 50 years. 50 years ago, in the age of monogamy, the vast majority of both men and women would pair off on a 1-to-1 scenario. But now, in 2021, where absolutely no one cares about monogamy, we are seeing the 80-20 rule being played out across the market, where 80% of women only have eyes for and are dating the top 20% of guys. So if you're in the bottom 80%, good luck because you are literally competing for breadcrumbs. Anyway guys, that's the video, and these are my 6 reasons for why the dating market is only going to get worse in the future. If you've thought of any more reasons that you think I missed, be sure to leave a comment below explaining your thinking. And make sure you press the like button too, as it helps the YouTube algorithm.